Hello, Freefrommers. Welcome to the first ever Allergy and Freefrom show chat with me, Ben Corbett. I'm sure I speak for everyone at the AFF team when I say we're beyond excited about seeing you all in London and Birmingham this autumn. You can get your free tickets in the video description below or above, depends what device you're using. Anyway, but in the meantime, we wanted to reach out to you guys with a helping hand at this challenging time with hints, tips, recommendations, anecdotes, and news on all things Freefrom. We have some amazing guests lined up for you, from bloggers to bake-off stars, with the likes of Sarah Howells, aka the Gluten Free Blogger, Becky XL from Gluten Free Cup of Tea, and bake-off semi-finalist Rosie Brandreth Pointer, to name but a few. Keep your eyes peeled because we have some big guests and announcements in the coming weeks. But before I bring in our first guest, I just wanted to give a shout out to Jess. She's also known as Gluten Free Picks, and say happy 21st birthday. I know you probably didn't picture celebrating your 21st under lockdown, but I bet your family still made it really special, and your friends will be ready to party when all this is over with. So right, on to today. I'm just going to go right ahead and invite into the virtual studio Natalie Newman.
Good afternoon.
Nat, how's it going? Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, and hi everybody. I hope you're all keeping well and safe.
It's weird. When I invited you in, I expected there to be a round of applause because I'm used to doing live stuff. So maybe I introduced you too grandly. Like I built it up as if everyone was going to go. I bet they're doing that at home, right?
Who knows? But I tell you what, it certainly feels very weird on this side because I'm normally the one with the microphone asking the questions of everybody in the kitchen. So this is a bit of a strange one for me.
Well, I asked the questions round here, Nat. So let's begin with, for any free-frommers that have been living under a rock, who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, so I'm Natalie, also known as the Intolerant Gourmand across all social media and on my website as well. I've been in the allergy world now for 8 years after my little boy Callum was diagnosed with 28 severe allergies, 8 of which are anaphylaxis inducing. It was not until he was 16 months old that we found out what his diagnosis was, after he was extremely poorly and we almost lost him 3 times. And at the point of diagnosis, I decided that things were going to change. He wasn't going to be missing out on anything, and we had to figure out a whole new way of living. Now, people like to say that it's a learning curve, and this curve for me was going straight up, and probably still is on some occasions, but it meant that we were able to make life more normal for Callum. Intolerant Gourmand was born, and now I can be found presenting, working with TV and radio, doing things with yourselves, like running the kitchen for you, doing recipe demonstrations, and also creating recipes for some fantastic free-from companies that are out there, and then just helping and assisting people as much as possible to be kind of the holding hand that people need when they need that support most.
And I guess one of those times where people would need a helping hand is right now, because there's so much that we could talk about. There's so much that I could ask you, but with everything that everyone's got going on at the moment, I feel like the best place to start is, how do we deal with now? How do we deal with the situation that we're in? And I guess I'm going to ask you first what you would say is the most difficult challenge to those living free from, or I guess specifically to you, parenting a child with allergies during lockdown.
Yes, that's a very good question, and one I think all of us are still trying to scrabble for an answer for, if you like. It's the biggest one that I've certainly had with the people that I work with and the parents that are being supported by my website and all the social media that a lot of other people are doing, is finding basic free-from foods. That's the most difficult thing that people have found at the moment. And certainly in the beginning stages of this lockdown, I'd say kind of 6-8 weeks back, people were really, really struggling to find even basic free-from pasta or bread or dairy-free milk, because people were stockpiling or hoarding that don't normally use free-from foods in any way, shape or form. Now, we kind of had the last laugh, because if you haven't cooked gluten-free pasta before, you're in for a treat, because if you don't know how you're doing it, then that's going to be an interesting one for you, and it goes rather claggy and sticky, and I'm sure I can almost hear the giggles from a lot of people that are gluten-free online at the moment. Ditto that with the dairy-free milk. If you just add dairy-free milk into your tea or coffee, well, hello splitting, and these delightful little pieces that are going to look like it's cottage cheese floating in your coffee. So it's not the best way to go about it if you don't know what you're doing. But it comes with its own territory type thing, doesn't it? It's if you're dealing with things like this that you're used to having certain foods, it becomes quite fearful if you don't have those ones that you trust. And that's really important in the free from arena, especially if you're dealing with severe allergies. You have certain foods that you trust. You've gone through all the labeling, you know what the manufacturing processes are. You trust certain products, certain labels more than you would do any other, because you're guaranteed that it's the safest possible option for you and won't cause you any form of reaction. Now, anything that we do at the moment, we've got to be super careful, because the last place we want to be is in a hospital in this current situation. It's kind of absolutely a no-go. So we've got to be particularly stringent, more so than we ever are normally. And labeling and making sure it's all accurate is absolutely crucial to us. Now, if you haven't got that food you trust, where do you turn?
Absolutely. And I can see that Helen in the comments, that is actually the first question that we've had, that she's struggling to get basic gluten-free food. Have you got any tips? Like, I mean, I've got one. I'll start off. I mean, I found it really, really tricky to find gluten-free pasta in those first few weeks.
Yeah,
and the weird thing is, you start looking in places that you wouldn't usually look. And I actually ended up getting sort of a pack of 5 packs of gluten-free pasta from Amazon of all the places.
And it didn't cost you the earth to get it?
This is the thing. I mean, if you're buying 5 packs at once, then you would hope not. I know that going on to, I mean, I tried to get flour on eBay and people were charging through the roof for one pack of flour. But there are certain places.
We do have a solution, and actually it's friends of the show, long-time friends of the show, that are actually able to help. So the fabulous team at Dove's Farm have managed to put together, hang on, I wrote a note down of what it's called. It's called the Gluten Free Food Box. They're selling it for £25 on their website, but they're only opening up the website to orders for a very short amount of time because they've got so much demand for it. But if people are really struggling, that is an option to be able to get the basics from them. So they have certain cereals, they have self-raising flour, they have plain flour, they have their oat bars, they have, I think there's a couple of cake mixes in there as well. It's really good value for what you're actually being sent. So it's one to look out for. And then they're also selling 16 kilo bags of their flours as well. And they start, I think, at $23.99. So again, pretty reasonable for the amount of flour that you're going to be getting.
So I guess what we're talking about is going straight to brands, straight to manufacturers, trying to cut out the middleman. And, you know, if you can't buy it on your regular shop, to try your best to get online and see because by the sounds of it, with what Dove's Farm are doing, that's a new initiative that they're doing specifically for this situation. And there could be more out there and people that are doing similar things.
That's it. I mean, our local pub has turned into not a pub anymore. It's become our local village shop, and bless them, they're doing everything they can from their wholesalers to bring everything back to the pubs that we can use it as a mini shop. And they've been able to get some gluten-free flour for me for Callum, doing a very similar sort of thing. And it's an absolute godsend because you're not having so much interaction with people. There's not as many people coming in and out, so it's safer. You're not getting a stupid amount on cost. It's as it would normally be for us. And let's face it, free from food is difficult enough in terms of cost as it is. And when there's so many people that are furloughed and are really struggling to get money in at the moment, it helps to have every little possible bit covered, doesn't it?
And I guess if there's local businesses like pubs and stuff like that, it is quite nice to feel like you're supporting them through a difficult time as well. So, yeah, it's really one of those times where everyone's pulling together and reach out to people, reach out to local businesses, reach out to companies directly, and hopefully you'll find that you can get the things that you need. Is there anything you're finding yourself having to go without at the moment that you usually wouldn't?
So dairy-free milk really is a struggle at the moment. I'm not going to lie. We did manage to get a few bits because we have various friends looking for us in the early stages, and that's the only thing that's kept us going. Other than that, I cook from scratch. So that's one of the biggest things for me, is that I've cooked from scratch for a very long time because of the multitude of allergies that we deal with Callum. I set up a Facebook group to try and help people as well using all their store cupboard ingredients, which seems to be doing quite well because it's using up those things you wouldn't normally expect, or you have the most basic of ingredients and you think, well, how on earth am I going to turn this into something half edible that people are actually going to eat? Because the added issue that a lot of people have is that when children have allergies, there's also food aversion that kicks in as well. And when you're dealing with food aversion and not being able to get the foods that they trust and love, that's a whole different headache that you really don't want to have to be dealing with when it's stressful enough for us all as it is.
So with that in mind, I guess, so what recipes are you going to? What are your go-to recipes for at the moment for the things that you've got in the cupboard and the things that people are finding and avoiding those things that maybe people are struggling to get? What are your sort of top recipes that you're going to at the moment?
So potatoes are my best friend. You can do so much with them. We're talking saute potatoes, jacket potatoes on a barbecue, turning the leftover of mash into potato pancakes with a tin of tuna in them and then some fresh salad on the side. You can turn them into fries. You can turn them into curly fries if you want to be really artistic with it. You can add spices to it if you can cope with that, like paprika or a bit of chili. So it just changes things up a little bit, but you can get the kids involved in it as well. And they love doing stuff like that. And then add things to it, like just very simple chicken breast that's been grilled, or you've got some steak if you want to get some extra iron in your system, or you can, turn it into literally anything, like a potato hash if you've got any mince that needs to be used up. Pretty much absolutely anything can be done with a potato. But go from...
Do you know what?
Go on.
I'm pretty excited to get Rosie on the show from Bake Off, because I saw on her Instagram that she made brownies out of mashed potato, which has blown my mind. Yeah. That's absolutely blown my mind.
On my website is sweet potato chocolate brownies, and it takes 20 minutes from start to finish. So you get one of these massive sweet potatoes, stick it in the microwave for about 6 minutes till it's all soft, scoop all of the flesh out, add 1 egg, do 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a cupful of self-raising flour. Mix the whole lot together, shove it in the oven for 16 minutes, job done.
There you go. And I'll say now that after we're done, I will stick a link in the comments to Nat's recipes, so you guys can go and check them out for yourselves.
It works with jar.
There you go. Well, other than these food questions that we're talking about, I guess there's the whole other side to it, and especially with parenting as well. It can be sometimes difficult to manage the anxieties of our children and just that sort of mental health through a time where they're stuck indoors. They can tell things are different. Not only that, it's difficult to turn on the television at the moment without them overhearing something that might sound frightening to them. How are you dealing with that side of things?
Again, that's a really good question. With Callum, it's actually triggered off quite a few things. So he's kind of being shielded because he's got multiple issues that are going on, and we have to be really careful with him. But during that process, it's triggered off a memory for him of when we lost my father-in-law a couple of years back, where everybody kind of disappeared. He was being looked after by my mum, and they didn't see anybody for a few weeks while my husband and I were trying to deal with everything that was going on and sort out all the stuff that needed to be sorted out, which was a good 3 or 4 weeks before we were even able to have a funeral. So it's really kind of kicked off quite a few triggering things for him, which has meant that he's missing him even more than he normally does, on top of dealing with all the stress that comes with what's going on at the moment. So that's been a whole challenge that we never expected out of all of this. Out of everything that's going on, that was not something that we'd even considered would be a problem at the same time. The additional thing for him as well is it's kind of made him face his own mortality again. And we've been very open and honest with him from a very young age to explain to him the severity of his allergies, but in a childlike manner, so that he understands how he's got to stay safe, how it's so important that we're on top of what's going on around him and about his medication. And he's very acutely aware that people are not in control of what's going on with this virus at the moment. And that, when you're dealing with allergies, is kind of crucial when it comes to the mental health side of things. If people are in control, they feel as if things are better around them, if that makes sense. If that control's taken away from you, there's a real fear of it spiraling out of control. And that's something that's really difficult, whether it's a child or an adult, to deal with. And we all know as an adult, there's a lot of us that are struggling with what's going on at the moment as well. We're almost feeling bereft of what we're used to. We can't go to the pub as we normally do. And they seem really trite things in comparison to what's going on. But all the stuff that we're used to, like your friend that you mentioned, the blogger who's just had a 21st birthday, everything's been taken away from us as we know it and as we're used to. And we all took it so much for granted. Imagine that on a child's level, and then try and figure out how you can make them feel better. And the simplest thing that we've done with Callum, and certainly with our eldest daughter Chloe as well, is we're just making sure that we're keeping things as level as possible. We're honest with them and saying there's issues that are going on. And yes, there's not a cure yet. There's not a vaccine yet, but people are working really hard. But as long as we're staying safe, we know what we're doing is right. We're staying away from people. We're isolating for Callum, making sure he's safe. We're eating good, nutritious food. We're not eating rubbish. So our bodies are in the most optimum they can be. We're doing the Joe Wicks PE with Joe every single morning. So we're keeping our energy levels going. We're going for nice walks in our village when the pollen's not kicking my butt, which it really is at the moment. You know, there's lots of things that you can do to keep that mental health side in an active and healthy manner. But I'm sure there's many other things that people are doing out there as well, which is going to be helping too. So I invite people to say, come share what you do, because everybody helps, don't they? And it's a huge community that we can all be there holding each other's hands.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that really stuck out for me that you were talking about there is the control aspect, because obviously when you feel things are out of control, especially when you're used to having control of things, yeah, that can be really, really tough.
Yeah.
But I guess there are things that we do have control of, and that we could even let our children have control of. So everyone's planning out their meals sort of 2 weeks in advance at the moment.
Yeah.
So I guess letting your children choose what they're going to eat for the next 2 nights out of a choice of sort of 10 things, that's, you know, maybe that gives them some opportunity to take control back and feel like they've got some agency over their lives at the moment. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. Yeah.
So Callum does that. So one of the things he can do from scratch without us doing anything is chicken. In fact, he did it at the show last summer at Olympia. Is the chicken nuggets. And that's something so simple, but it's actually nutritious for us because of the way that we cook it as well. And then he'll make some potato wedges to go with it. So he's got full autonomy over what's going into that dish. He cooks it. I help him take it out the oven. But the sense of pride he gets from feeding the entire family is fantastic for his mentality. It really is really good. And it teaches him so much at the same time. You know, it's like a life skill that you would normally be getting in school. So that covers that aspect of the homeschooling as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I guess something you just touched on, and everyone in here will be up for this and in for this, is what do you think the Free From community can do to support each other at this sort of time? You mentioned sort of, you know, sharing tips and stuff. I guess we're trying to give people an opportunity to come together right here and talk to each other and to give each other tips, and anything anyone puts in the comments, we'll make sure that we get out there to people.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think the allergy community already is absolutely awesome. I mean, we know how hard life can be, and we know the challenges that are faced on a day-to-day basis for all of us with dealing with allergies. It's like a ticking time bomb, and we never know when that bomb's going to explode. It's just now become a situation that everybody in the world is facing that same situation. It's a ticking time bomb none of us know about. We've been training for this for as long as we've been an allergist, so we all know what we're doing to that effect. You know, we're aware of cross-contamination. We're aware of having to be really careful about labeling, about washing hands, about cleaning absolutely everything. Now it's just gone on a global scale. So in a way, it's almost safer, if that makes sense. I don't mean to say that in a really trite way. It's almost safer because people are on our level and understanding what we're having to deal with. And as a result, the community has just grown and grown and grown. And that can only be a good thing. There's so many people trying to support each other. Let's keep that mentality going, because that's what will see everybody through. That's the one thing that I think is the most heartwarming thing that's come out of all of this, is this growing sense of continued community spirit, that everybody is there to help each other.
I think that's really cool. And I think it's a microcosm of what you're seeing sort of across the entire nation and across the communities at the moment, is that people are putting together. I know in the village that I live in, if you post on Facebook, has anybody got any flour or something like that, there'll be half a bag will be at your front door by the next morning. And I think the allergy community, the Free From community, that they're used to already being quite a tight-knit community. So that's already there. So I hope that stuff that we're doing will help to connect people. Anything anyone posts on here, like I say, any tips, any better answers to questions that we've asked than we've given, please write in the comments, and we will make sure that information gets out to people, I guess. But lastly, I'm going to ask, and just to end on a more sort of, or to end this part about the lockdown on a more positive note, is this isn't going to last forever. We are absolutely going to come out of the other side. I can't wait. What's the first thing that you are going to do when things start to go back to some level of normality, do you think?
Probably the same thing as many others. My mum lives 2.5 hours away from us, and we are missing her dreadfully. So I will be going to see my mum, bless her. We were actually meant to be going to Liverpool this weekend. My husband had bought a long weekend away for all of us. There's a group of 10 of us that were meant to be going to Liverpool to the Cavern Club and staying for the whole weekend up there. So we're missing out on quite a lot of stuff this weekend as well. So that'll probably be added to the list as the next thing that we do afterwards as well. But the most important thing at the moment is that we all stay safe. That's kind of crucial.
Absolutely right. I'm going to go to Uniqlo and buy some clothes, but I'll probably see my parents after that. I don't mean it, Mum and Dad, but I'll be straight to you to see you. So, Nat, what have you got coming up in future? You've got some exciting news for us, I believe.
Yeah, I do. So I haven't actually released this anywhere yet, apart from to the very few people that have been involved already. So as everybody knows, I'm used to having the microphone in my hand and me being the one asking the questions. So today's been a very interesting experience for me, but I'll be going back to normality, if you like. And I am launching a podcast from next Friday with some really exciting guests. So yeah, you've got the exclusive. You've heard it here first. The podcast from Natalie Newman, known as Allergies and You, will be coming next Friday.
Amazing. And where will people be able to find that?
So it will be on all of the platforms. So your iTunes, Spotify, Android, or whatever version you prefer listening to your podcasts on. And it will also be on my newly vamped website, which will be launched very soon as well.
Okay, awesome. That sounds really cool. Really exciting news. Yeah. And thanks for saving that to share it with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for letting me share it as well.
No probs. A quick thing from Carmen. She says chickpea flour, gluten-free, makes a good bread on the shelf. That's really cool. So that's another good tip. Yep. I've seen some people that were without yeast using baking soda, making soda bread as well. I think it's quite cool. I even found I had a little bit of self-raising flour left, but no plain flour. I managed to make some bread just using self-raising flour. I found a random thing for that, and it wasn't that bad.
And I have to say, I need to give a shout out to the lovely Sarah at Gluten Free Blogger, because oh my goodness me, she released an absolutely incredible dough ball recipe. So if you have not seen it yet, you need to go see it.
Well, that's an interesting one, actually, because she's on next week, right? And what I'd like to do is I'd like to start a question train going on. Okay, so Sarah's on next week. I'm going to give her a question from you. Okay. I'll put you on the spot here. And because you won't be there and you're making me ask it, it can literally be anything that you want, and you don't have the fear of having to look her in the eye when you say it. What question would you like me to ask Sarah next week? What sort of advice would you like from her?
I would like to know, because her stuff always looks amazing, what is her worst baking disaster to date?
That is amazing and mean, and I love it.
Sorry, Sarah. I can almost hear her cursing now.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we've done about 25 minutes, which was our aim. Amazing. So I reckon we're going to wrap things up now. So just for me to say thank you very much, Nat, for being our first ever guest. Thanks
Pleasure.
for coming on.
An honor. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And we're going to get you back to actually do some cooking demos, right?
Yeah, we will do. We absolutely will do. And I might even pull Callum in to help me as well.
That sounds amazeballs. So I'm just going to remind everyone to tune in next Friday at 3:30 when I'm going to endeavour to dress smart from the waist up once again, because I'll be welcoming Sarah Howells, the gluten-free blogger, into the virtual studio. In the meantime, if you have any news, stories, tips, or questions for future guests, you can email them to info@f2fevents.co.uk or drop us a message on any of our social media channels. We can't wait to see you all in the autumn. Get your tickets for London and Birmingham in the video description. But until next week, stay home and stay safe, free from us.
Stay safe.